Okay, hi everybody, and welcome to the September 9th version, 2019 version of our community call. We'll start off with any team announcements. Does anyone on the team want to talk about what you've been doing or have anything to say?
One thing I've factored out the SRTP code out of libjitsi. One consequence of this in practice, is other than just code reorganization, which is useful to us but boring, is that it used to be that, so I've slightly changed the SRTP, the use of the OpenSSL library it's using internally. As a consequence, if you're on 32-bit Linux or older 64-bit Linux, which doesn't have OpenSSL 1.1, you're now going to get the Java fallback crypto rather than the OpenSSL crypto, which will still work but will be slightly slower. If you need, the code will compile with the older OpenSSL and on 32-bit, so if you need it, it should be possible to compile it yourself. But as distributed, it will be only 64-bit and OpenSSL 1.1, which is, I think, Ubuntu 18.04 and later.
Cool, thank you, Jonathan. Anyone else on the team have anything to say?
Maybe I can say a couple of words about the screen sharing bug fix that we recently did. So I was recently able to identify a scenario where the client fails to activate simulcast when, in particular, a user joins hidden. So the chain of events was the following. We have a meet participant that joins hidden. This sets the start video muted flag. Normally, this is not normal operation, but you may have an application that sets that flag. So that causes libjitsi meet to not create a local Jitsi track, which leads to an SDP flag, a legacy conference flag, not being added to the SDP. That was the traditional way of doing simulcast back at the day. Now it's legacy; it's not supposed to be used anymore. But it turns out there is just one little use case where this is still required. It's when you use legacy simulcast, which is exactly what we do in Meet. So libjitsi Meet was not adding the conference flag in the SDP. That led to simulcast not being activated with screen sharing. And if the user decides to go from the hidden state to the screen sharing state, he was able to activate screen sharing, but without simulcast. And then if a switch back to then any other set remote description would include the conference flag and would enable simulcast, and that would cause a dynamic switch from non-simulcast to simulcast mode, and that would confuse. Well, actually, we don't know exactly what this would cause, but we suppose that this confuses the bridge and breaks the stream, and it leads to connectivity issues at the receiving endpoints in the call. So the way we have fixed that right now is by making sure that we always include the conference flag in the SDP. This shouldn't cause any issues, and it should fix our immediate problem. And we're going to have a look at the bridge and see why it gets confused and why it causes connectivity issues when that specific scenario happens. So Jitsi doesn't have the fix right now, so we're not running with that with a fixed version. We are going to release a new version either later today or tomorrow that will include the fix. So if you were impacted by that, you should no longer be impacted by that.
Cool, thank you, George. Anyone else from the team have anything you want to talk about?
Yes, so there was this code which is supposed to do ICE restart when ICE fails on the client, and it turns out it was never working, but it's fixed now, and it's currently on the master. I don't think it's been released to Jitsi already, but let us know if you find any issues with that, and that's all from me.
Thank you, Pavel. Anything else? Yeah, that's correct, Nico. This is about ice failures.
It is about mainly failures in a working peer connection, just for everyone to be clear. So not ice fail during initial negotiation.
I see. Cool. Thank you for the clarification. Emil, do you have anything else you want to talk about while you're
No,
here?
I'm good. Thank you.
Excellent. Yana, you here? You want to talk about anything?
No, there's nothing I can think about for an update in the
Cool.
past 2 weeks.
Anyone else from our team? Going once and twice. Okay, so we're opening it up to general discussion. Anybody have questions, comments, other announcements?
Hi, this is Fabrice. Can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Hey.
Hey, hello. So first, thanks for this platform you are providing. We are using it using libjitsi, and we are very happy with it. But for a few months now, we faced an issue in a peer-to-peer mode. Is that when someone has a low bandwidth or bad connection, it gets disconnected. And in peer-to-peer mode, we are not recovering the connection. We do when we set up the bridge mode, but in peer-to-peer mode, we don't. So I've been working with you, Damien Shaw. I'm not sure I'm spelling it right, on such issue, and I track one in GitHub. I just wanted to know if you guys had the chance to look at it.
So you created an issue in libjitsi?
Yeah.
I barely remember anything.
Yeah, in GitHub.
No, I don't think we have addressed that or talked about it yet.
Wouldn't that be covered by Pavel's Ice Restart work?
No, my work. No, it doesn't change anything to peer-to-peer. We actually don't retry when ice fails there. But is this failure about like when network is interrupted for some time, or what is it about?
Not necessarily interrupted, but we were able to reproduce it by with someone located in South America with a low connection, and if he tries to download something big in parallel, then his bandwidth becomes very tight, very small, and then we were able to reproduce it on such a platform, meet.jitsi. And so each time he
So how
downloads.
do you experience the failure? What do you see when you're trying to unmute Jitsi?
Then we lose the video. We get in the console log. You can see the message track lost something, but we never get it back.
You say you lose the video. Does that mean that audio is going on?
Both audio and video, yeah, in peer-to-peer.
Okay, you lose everything and you see.
No, I'm not losing everything. I'm just losing video, not the audio.
Wait, you just said both audio and video.
No.
I'm not sure.
Maybe I did not explain it well, but I'm losing video. We can still hear each other, but
Okay, so this is not a nice failure then. This is something else, and that might actually be more related, maybe to the issue that George was describing.
Yeah, you're right, Emil. You're right. We have this flag. Maybe you want to talk about that. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
We have this
but
flag.
George, again, is that something? Oh, which flag are you talking about?
We have this flag in the peer connection that tells the peer connection to suspend the video when the bandwidth is low. And that's only on the peer-to-peer peer connection. We don't have it in the JVB peer connection, but sometimes it misbehaves, and it may lead to that problem.
George, could you please paste the exact flag here in the chat so that they can try it on their own deployment?
Yeah.
I think I have pasted it in the form already. It's the Google suspend below minimum bitrate, right?
Yes. Yeah, you're right, Damien. That's it.
Yeah.
But don't we have a setting for it in config, I believe?
No, for peer-to-peer, no. I just pasted here in the chat that the thread that brought that problem, and the last thing I've pasted there was the line from the code where this is set. So, yeah.
I think we should probably disable that for peer-to-peer as well, exactly because it misbehaves. So
yeah, that's something I tried. In fact, I can copy paste what I did in the chat too. I put such option. It's named Google enable video suspend below min bitrate, right? I tried to put it to false as you suggested, but it didn't have any effect. It didn't change the behavior.
where did you try to put it? In the code?
No, in the conference config.js file.
Right, but that's what Damien is saying, that we don't apply that on the peer-to-peer peer connection.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is I believe we should just disable that everywhere, because we've had multiple reports of it misbehaving, and we also when we did our A/B test, it wasn't a significant difference. So I think we should just remove it from everywhere.
So you're saying I should disable that, but where?
No.
Where
I was saying that for the team.
Sorry.
Are you using your own? You said you were using your own instance. You could, but I assume you're just using the Debian packages, right? You're not building them out yourself.
Yeah, we are using our own servers, with Jitsi running on Docker images. So yeah.
Oh, okay. So you're using the Docker images. Okay, so you wouldn't be able to change that yourself.
No.
Yeah, Damien, let's try to make sure that we flip that flag in the next week or so.
Okay. I mean, does it make sense to even keep it around while we exit?
I mean, why not? Let's just flip it, make sure that we're not using it, and or just make sure that it's not set at all, and just keep the browser default. That should be okay. All right, Damien.
Yep.
Cool.
Thanks.
So do you feel like this question is resolved for now?
Okay. So thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Anybody else with questions, or any further questions from you?
Hi, this is Paul. How's everybody doing?
Well, thank you.
Paul.
I've got just a few questions. We're continuing our recorder RTP impl new implementation based on the new video bridge, and I just had a few follow-up questions. I don't know if Brian or Boris are on the call. But yeah, just a couple things. First off, just on strategies related to silence detection. Now that we're kind of like in the thick of it, the biggest difference, I guess, is we are no longer converting to PCM audio. So we're working with just Opus, and we don't have the JMF. It was a little bit more implicit just to make everything linear PCM audio. So now, and then it's also there's no more stream. So I just wanted to get a quick sanity check from the community as far as making sure we're kind of headed in the right direction. The first being we're not really trying to create any sort of wrapper that simulates a stream like in the old world. We're just using a packet handler, and we're just looking at the packets that come in, looking at the SSRC, and if it's a new SSRC that we haven't seen before, we kind of start tracking it. And that point forward, we just we create sort of like a shim around the data sync, which is used for persisting the audio and video. And we just start sending the packets, RTP or RTCP packets, for that SSRC directed to that particular sync. And that's sort of our wrapper. So in the old world, for the audio recorder or the recorder RTP, there was a silence detector, which looked for gaps. I don't know if there's anything we should be doing. There's really no equivalent as far as I'm aware. So I don't know if there's something we need to do special to detect gaps. I guess we can continue to kind of work in a similar way. Just look at keep track of the latest sequence number, and if we see a gap, just kind of track it. In the old world, we used to, I believe what happens after a certain amount of time, then the connection would be stopped. So if there's more than 3 seconds of silence, I think what the recorder used to do is just actually stop the stream. I don't know if we should do something similar. I don't know, or whether that even makes sense. And finally, we were doing synchronization of audio and video and also audio streams together. And so I think my last questions are just related to strategies around synchronization of time. So we're basically keeping the old synchronizer class, and we're doing the same kind of thing, and we're synchronizing the audio time, the RTP time to the NTP time, and syncing that to the JVB system current time millis. I don't know if there is a different strategy we should think of, or I think in general, we were curious, I was looking at the lip sync hack, whether if we were able to synchronize all the multiple audio streams together to the same JVB time. Has anybody done anything related to syncing the audio streams on the client, like multiple separate participant audio streams to the client? Is there any way to in a similar way that audio and video work, to synchronize those two things together? Is there a way to synchronize different SSRCs together on the client if we're able to synchronize them on the server?
I don't, George or Boris or Jonathan might be better on the sync question, but I was just, for the gap thing, are you talking about, a couple of follow-up questions, are you talking about gaps in audio activity or gaps in packets? Because those could be two independent things.
So I think the way the old silence detector worked, it just looked for gaps in packets. So I think it would just track the sequence number and the last sequence number, and if there were, when a new packet came in, if it saw that there was more than a certain amount of gap, then it would see that as like a clue to basically stop that stream.
And are you checking for this after some form of a jitter buffer, or is this just the raw input?
Right now it's just the raw input, but yeah, it probably would make sense to put this after some sort of buffer. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think you would want that. And again, I'm not super familiar with the behavior of the old, but that sounds like something that, for that particular thing, that sounds like something that's more dependent on the behavior you guys want to exhibit rather than something that's necessarily like a need for a stream. I mean, obviously, a big gap in a stream would probably be telling you that something is up, but whether or not you want to suspend and honestly, I'm a little bit ignorant on what maybe the file container is going to expect as well in terms of temporarily suspending writing something or keeping it going and doing the injecting the silence. But it sounds a little bit like maybe it'll depend on what you guys want. So and if it's just to mimic the old behavior, I'm afraid I don't really know. So maybe that's not much of an answer.
No, yeah, I mean, it's fine for us to be able to just fill in gaps. So it's yeah, it shouldn't be a problem in terms of having.
I just wanted to check too that you guys are aware that the audio level is in the RTP extension header.
Yes, so that was
of the packets.
Yes.
Okay.
So I guess, yeah, and that should be in Jitsi, the new Jitsi RTP. So in the old recorder implementation, the original one, I wish I could remember why. I think Boris explained this at one point, but for whatever reason, it was actually using the since I guess the audio streams were converted to linear PCM audio anyway. It was using the actual audio data, as far as I remember, to calculate the audio levels. Which, yeah, if they're in the header, it doesn't really seem why. I can't remember why we wouldn't just use what's in the header, especially since our goal now is to not transcode the audio at all.
Right, and I don't know that, but one thing to also be aware of is that I'm assuming you're looking at the implementation that's more hanging off the conference rather than the receive side, but we won't. I get the audio packets. I can't remember, Boris, if they're silence and we discard them. Does the encrypted kind of silent packet make it all the way through? Or do we end up dropping that somewhere completely? I can't remember, but that will be something to look out for.
Yeah, in the old bridge, we were dropping the packets before in the ingress. I'm not sure what happens in the new bridge. I think we have kept this behavior.
I think so too. I don't remember the specifics of it, but that's something to watch out for, which is like if you're seeing gaps, big gaps and stuff, it might be because these packets were silenced and they were dropped completely, because I know we avoid wasting the time on decrypting them if we see they're silent. But we don't drop them immediately when we detect they're silent, because there are some places where we don't want it to be detected as lost. So I don't remember specifically where something those get kind of dropped, but that will be something to keep in mind.
Yeah, it would be good just to know, to at least be able to differentiate between a drop packet and a silence packet.
Yeah.
And so,
and the other thing that might be a little tricky there, I don't think is going to be a problem in this right now, but like technically the different endpoints can signal different extension IDs for that thing. In practice right now, they're all the same, but so you can kind of just hard code looking up one audio level ID in the extension in the header, but something to be aware of.
So, what do you mean by that?
The ID of the audio level extension header is technically signaled independently, but in practice we use the same thing for everyone. So you can just kind of hard code which ID you use to look it up in the header.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. And as far as we're doing synchronization of I guess was normally intended for the audio and video streams, conversion of the RTP time in the packet to NTP time using the RTCP sender report. Can we rely on just the RTP header extension that includes the NTP time in the packets? Is that there by default?
No, I don't think anybody sends that.
Nobody sends it. Okay. I thought Chrome.
Are you talking about absent time?
Yeah.
No, absent time is when the packet was actually sent, which is not necessarily when it was. With the time, it's nothing to do with decoding. That's not the NTP time.
Got it.
That's just
I see.
That's just the condition
Okay.
control. Yeah. Really, timestamps across RTP sources don't have any necessary relationship to each other at all, because it's basically because they're coming from entirely different endpoints. There's not really it doesn't really mean anything for them to be synchronized, because if I'm in New York and you're in London or whatever, that's not meaningful for them to be synchronized at all. So,
Right. No. Way. So we part of what we're doing is we have extra metadata that we're including so that when we can be aware of clients that are in the same location, and we have a few other mechanisms to try to accurately synchronize those audio streams. I think the big question then, and then of course also the audio and video streams we want to be, but that I think is more straightforward.
Yeah.
But then the big question is when it gets to the client, if assuming we perfectly synchronize 5 different audio streams that are coming from the same physical location, but they're 5 completely different machines, what mechanism could we use on the client side to actually synchronize them so that they played out at the right time? I don't know if there is a solution for that. I was wondering, I remember looking at some with the lip sync hack. How does that work when there's an audio and video separate streams? Those are synchronized on the playout. What's happening on the sort of WebRTC client side to sort of enforce that they are synchronized together based on
there's a difference between audio and video coming from a single source where they can be signaled that they're associated, and I think you get the same clock across those. But then across different clients is, like Jonathan said, a different story. But that's one of those things that, and Jonathan is probably more an expert here than I am, but it's like one of those things where you have those clients, I think you kind of just handle the streams independently, and then when you render those out, it kind of just works.
So just because like the jitter buffer kind of takes care of it, right?
Yeah. Well, basically the thing is, if they're coming from different machines, generally speaking, the best you're going to get is, the system real-time clock, which, hopefully these days everybody's NTP synced, but in practice they're not. So it's pretty common. Clocks being off by 2 seconds from each other is actually doing pretty well for a typical Windows installation, but that's hopeless for synchronizing audio streams. So
we discovered that. We see even worse than that. But
minutes that are off is not uncommon.
And Paul, if you had someone in a call, without recording, but in a call who had a lot of latency or who had a lot of loss or jitter, which meant that jitter buffer had grown, just in a normal call, you'd see their audio out of sync, and it would be really annoying. That's because even Chrome and stuff like that, there's just nothing you can do.
Yeah, I get, because we don't really have access to the jitter buffer on the client side, at least in a way that, theoretically, we could change it. If we were to synchronize a bunch of clients that we knew were in the same physical location, we could change their respective jitter buffers to be in sync so that they could accommodate the lowest common denominator. And there's some extensions that, some RTP extensions that that try to solve, get everybody on the same clock through signaling.
I'm pretty sure no browser implements that.
Yeah, I'm sure no browser. Yeah, so it would have to be a custom client. So I'm just curious if there's any hacky way of doing that. I think synchronizing them on the server side, through we have a few like actually looking at the audio streams themselves. Like that's a solvable problem. But I think we're at the mercy of Chrome. I think when it gets back to the client, as far as
I think if you try and basically do better than the result that you would get in a normal conference, which includes being somewhat at the mercy of people's networks, then you're probably getting into a pretty complex problem. That might make it very difficult to solve and may not in the end be worth it. I don't know. At least not to start. You could always start without it, I guess.
Yeah, no, just curious if anybody had any.
Well, you could also play a global
any solutions
sound and benefit from the fact that it will be going through all the microphones and use that to synchronize.
Say it again.
I mean, obviously the sound would have to be generated locally at every plate. Never mind. I was just being silly. I'm concerned that we've kind of stayed on that topic for a while. I personally need to drop out soon, so I wanted to check if there are any other questions from the community.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's all right.
So, any other questions?
Sounds like no.
All right.
I just had one other comment on the RTP silence thing. You probably should be detecting silence dropouts by RTP timestamp, not sequence number, because it's legitimate for the original sender to say, hey, this is silent, I'm not going to send any packets, at which point the timestamp will increment, the sequence number will not.
Okay. Thanks. That's good to know. So, okay, we'll use timestamp instead of sequence. That's a good point. Cool. Yeah. Thanks for everybody's help. We appreciate it. And I'll update the community forums with our progress. I think we're getting actually pretty close. So this is really the kind of questions that have come up along the way, but I think we'll be done hopefully in the next week or so.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thanks again for your help.
Cool.
Thanks, everyone.
Well, if
Have
there
a
are
great
no
week.
other, yeah. Thanks, y'all. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.